morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to Aquafil. After an overwhelming response of our previous colloquium series, we are happy to announce that this is going to be our fifth lecture series of the monthly colloquium organized by Marine Ecology Laboratory, Presidency University, Kolkata, in association with Aquafil. So I would like to request to introduce Dr. Sumit Mondal, sir, to introduce our honorable speaker. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, Momita, please present. Okay, good morning, everyone. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you for this monthly colloquium lecture series, sixth lecture, organized by Marine Ecology Laboratory in association with Outbreak. Today, we are lucky to have with us Dr. Souryadeep Mukherjee, Assistant Professor, Department of Life Sciences, Presidency University, Kolkata. His research area encompasses various aspects of biology and microbiology, antibacterial activity, pathogens, environmental microbiology, microbial ecology, and protein biochemistry. Apart from this microbiological aspect, he has a keen interest on wildlife biology as well as butterfly ecology. He has obtained his PhD in zoology from University of Burdwan. He has many awards and achievements to his credit. He has more than 1.5 decades teaching experience in graduate and undergraduate curriculum. He has joined as a lecturer in zoology in Netaji Mahavidyalaya, Arambagh, West Bengal, India in 2005 and subsequently at Department of Zoology of erstwhile Presidency College as an assistant professor in 2006. He joined Presidency University in December 2012. Postgraduate teaching experience, he has nearly 13 years and undergraduate teaching 14 years. He is serving as examiner for Biological Sciences, West Bengal Joint Entrance Examination Board. He has been appointed as university nominee in the governing body of Tarakeshwar Degree College, University of Burdwan, Tarakeshwar, Hooghly. He served as a reviewer of research projects of DST, ACRB, Government of India, and several national and international journals. He is a paper setter and examiner of undergraduate and postgraduate courses of University of Calcutta, Kalyani University, Vishwabharati University, Vidyasagar University, and several colleges under these universities. He has published more than 16 research papers and authors in 4 book chapters. He has handled 3 research projects till date. With this brief introduction, I am requesting Dr. Mukherjee to deliver his today's talk, Water-Borne Disease, Mitigation and Prevention. And I hope this talk will enlighten us about the present situation of the water pollution and students will get benefited from listening to this talk. Over to you, Dr. Mukherjee.
Thank you, Shumit. Thank you so much for your kind words. I would also like to thank Shumit, Dr. Shumit Mondal and Team Aquafil for giving this opportunity to me. So now I'll be starting my presentation right here. So is it visible to all?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. I'm going to start my talk. Just one request to the moderator that if you can please remind me when I complete 30 minutes, that would be very helpful. So the topic of today's talk, it would be more than a discussion than a talk, is waterborne diseases, mitigation and prevention. So this topic, waterborne diseases, its mitigation, its prevention, is a huge topic and one can easily run a whole semester on this topic. So I am not going to give you many data or many information on these topics because there are huge data set, huge number of research publications, such as reviews, popular articles. There are thousands of them. So, and in 40 minutes of time, no one can assimilate those data, those information, and after that, they will have a good lunch and maybe a good nap and forget everything. So, my intention would be to raise awareness through this talk and obviously raise some questions. So, whenever we are talking about water, we must remember that water is a very scarce and very expensive natural resource. So why water is scarce? We know from our first day at school that the earth is filled up with water. So why water is scarce? Let's have a look. So this is the total proportion of water on the earth. So among these, 97% is entrapped as marine water, that is saline water. It is situated in oceans. So these saline waters are not accessible for our purposes, for drinking, for agriculture, etc. So we have to depend on the freshwater proportion of the earth, which is 3%. It is actually a little less than 3%. And now in that 3%, this is the 3% of the freshwater. So this is 3% of world's water. Among these 3%, nearly 18% is again inaccessible to us as they are trapped as ice. And those ices are present on mountain tops, ice sheets, glaciers. So we cannot, if we want to use agricultural water or if we want to fetch some drinking water, so we cannot go to a glacier and break some ice and bring back home, boil it and drink. So we can't do it. So it is out of our access. Then 20% is groundwater. So groundwater is also not easily accessible for all of us, and it needs some technologies, it needs some tools to access it. So the accessible surface freshwater is just 1%. And please be reminded that this 1% is not 1% of total water. This 1% is 1% of the 3%. And even in this 1%, the water vapor, there are 8% water vapors. Water within us living organisms is 1%. So among these 1%, only 52 to 53% is accessible for all of us, for all the people of the world, for all the animals of the world, as they are situated in lakes and rivers. So this 53% or 52 point something percent is actually 0.02% of the total water of the earth. So the amount is actually very less. It is only 0.02% of the total water. So we know that water is needed for everything. We can imagine everything, but we cannot imagine anything without water. So it is agriculture, commerce, economy, our existence, energy production, everything is dependent on water. And water can be manipulated. We can pollute water, which we are doing on a regular basis. We can desalinate water. Yes, we can desalinate it, but it's an expensive process and not energy efficient. And we can recycle water. But one thing that we cannot do with water is we cannot manufacture water. So water is very scarce. We cannot manufacture water, but we can recycle, we can pollute water, and that leads to some global water crisis or some global water issues. So what are the issues? Here we can see two panels. In the left panel, we can see in Allahabad, just after a heavy rain, it is an area, a slum area near pumping water. And we can see the whole area is inundated. It is inundated with very dirty, very polluted water. And there are people moving around, there are animals moving around, and interestingly, people are taking their drinking water from this environment. So there is lots of water. And on the right side, you can see a little girl. She is collecting the drinking water so this water crisis. So what are the crises? The crisis are more than the people need, and somewhere there are very scarcity of water. And it is also not distributed evenly throughout the seasons. In India, we are very lucky. We, as a country, we are very lucky that we get around, though the average is again very skewed, but we get around 1000 millimeter of rainfall every year, which is a huge amount of water. But this 1000 millimeter in last year or 2018, it was more than 1000. But again, this 1000 millimeter of rainwater, it occurs within 3 months, and the 9 months are dry. And among those 3 months, the heavy rainfall occurs for around 15 to 20 days. So this 1000 millimeter of rain occurs only at in a span of 15 days or 20 days. So there will be excess water when we don't need it, and the excess water will ultimately add to the water runoff and go to the marine water and add to the 97% of water of the planet which are not accessible to us. So these are the problem. And there are other issues that the water may be very dirty. In many places of the world, the waters are very dirty. That means pollution. And another problem of water is very heavy. It is very hard to transport. Water cannot be transported easily. It is very heavy. We can, maybe some of us has seen or do know the event of water carrying train. There was a train, I forgot the year, it was a few years back, in Latur in Maharashtra. There was so heavy drought that water has been carried to Latur in a train, a very long train. So water is very hard to transport. And as this is a resource which is very essential, very unevenly distributed, there would always be corruption. So whenever a resource is needed by all and cannot be accessed by all, there will be some activities of the so-called economies. And there would be corruption, there would be governmental apathies, there would be some interest of industrialists and business people just to raise the pricing of that natural resource. And so there so for one thing, on one hand, water is not well managed in this world, and on the other hand, water is not well allocated to all the people who live on this world. And this non-allocation, not non-even allocation, is maintained by us very consciously, because we can see the one hand this girl is taking her drinking water from a railway track, and on the other hand, if you go to any e-commerce site, you can see that there are some bottles of water which are being sold in more than 1500 or 2000 rupees per liter per bottle. So that is the difference. So whenever there is crisis, there is corruption, there is apathy, there is non-even distribution, people will tend to reach to water of any kind. So if they have not equitable access to clean water, to purified water, they will use any water they can find at their hands. So that brings the problem of waterborne diseases. So, according to United Nations Children Agency, dirty water is more dangerous than any kind of violence on earth for our future of the earth, that is for our children. So, children under age of 15, three times of these children, they die three times more likely from diseases that arise from dirty water than any violence, any conflict, any war. We can see two panels here. One is the left one is at Vietnam and right one is at Indonesia. So we can see that people play and people swim and people drink these kinds of dirty waters. So waterborne diseases, when we talk about waterborne diseases, how severe is the case? Now, waterborne diseases, this is this is a graph from WHO. We can see that diarrheal disease is the third killer of the world. This is just below AIDS and acute respiratory infection. We all know acute respiratory infection nowadays very well. So, but this problem is this graph, this AIDS death includes the death of AIDS patient who died with tuberculosis. So actually, diarrheal disease is the second most proficient killer of this planet. And the deaths are more prominent in the developing countries than in the developed countries. So when we are inhabitant of a developing country, the problem is much more severe than the so-called developed countries. So everyone knows the intention of providing clean water to everybody. The intentions are very good as always. And in the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, the goal 6, this goal ensures access to water and sanitation for all, because sanitation is very important and it goes hand to hand with the availability of water. So by 2030, the goal is to achieve universal and equitable access of drinking water, equitable sanitation and hygiene, and I mean for all the people of the planet, improve water quality by reducing pollution, reducing dumping, and increase water use efficiency, because water is not used efficiently. So these are the goals. Now, what are the current scenario? According to WHO, the annual death rate due to diarrhea alone is 1.2 million. It is nearly 1.8 million. It is nearly 2 million lives per year. And again, children are more susceptible to these diarrheal diseases. There are lots of diarrheal diseases, a number of diseases, and children are more susceptible to that. 90% children in developing country, the total death of developing country children, the 90% of total death are caused by these diarrheal diseases. So there are 4 billion diarrheal cases all over the world in a year and around 2 million deaths. There are typhoids, and interestingly, 1 in 9 people, one in every 9 people of this planet, they lack access to a pure water source. And more people have a mobile phone than a toilet. This is very interesting. So we are more interested in having a mobile phone than a clean toilet, a clean source of sanitation. So these are the clinical features of waterborne diseases. There are loose motion, vomiting, abdominal pain, jaundice, yellow colored urine, dehydration, fever, and these can be again distributed in 3 types: type 1, that is inflammatory; type 2, that is type 1, that is non-inflammatory; type 2 is inflammatory; and type 3 is penetrating. I'm not going into the details of it. So these are the clinical syndromes by which a waterborne diseases can be identified. So we have to again remember that every disease that comes from water is not waterborne diseases. So diseases that are related to water, they are classified into 4 groups. The first one is waterborne disease. Waterborne disease is consumption of water, is caused by consumption of water that contains some pollution and that pollution must come from human or animal excreta. So this particular classification is only the waterborne disease, and these are example of diarrhea, cholera, typhoid. These are waterborne diseases. Then there are water induced or water related diseases. That is, these are vector-borne diseases which lay their eggs, which complete their life cycle in water, and especially in contaminated water. So we can see this is the season of dengue has come in our state. So there are dengue, there are malaria, there are Japanese encephalitis, sleeping sickness, etc. Then there are water washed disease. Water washed diseases are caused by poor personal hygiene. And this poor personal hygiene is not a choice. People lack access to clean drinking water. So, using clean water for their personal hygiene, for their everyday personal things, is a dream for many million peoples on the planet. So this poor personal hygiene cause skin infection, eye infection, ear infection, and these are known as water washed or water scarce diseases. And then comes water based diseases. These are the diseases when the infection are transmitted through aquatic invertebrates like schistosomiasis. So these are water based diseases, and the mode of transmission of waterborne diseases are drinking, food preparation, personal hygiene, and a large number of people get sick for recreational use of water, mainly for swimming. So there are a number of funnel composition that contains or that causes waterborne diseases. There are bacteria, there are viruses, there are protozoa, there are elements, and there are many organisms. So this is an ideal diarrheal disease pathway. So the pathway, when we are talking about waterborne diseases, the pathway always starts with excreta. Maybe it is human excreta or animal excreta. And these excreta will come to groundwater, surface water, soil, and then to our food and drinking water. Every food, every fish, every shellfish, every fruit, every vegetable, any food, any type of water is susceptible to be involved in this diarrheal disease pathway. So I'm just going to give you two examples of these waterborne diseases. First one is a very infamous killer of the planet, which is cholera. We know what cholera is. Cholera is caused by Vibrio cholerae, and there are other Vibrio species as well. Uh, we have to remember that this Vibrio cholera, there are many pandemics. We are very familiar with pandemics right now all over the world. So there has been many pandemics of Vibrio cholerae over the past years, and these pandemics has occurred in Kolkata also, in West Bengal also, and in many parts of our country and other countries as well. So these pandemics, when we talk about cholera pandemic, we have to remember that cholera is actually a natural, what should I say, a natural inhabitant of our waters. Cholera is involved in the food chain of marine and estuarine water. So, and there are some environmental conditions which favor the growth of cholera, like when there is salt, but a low amount of salt. One is when there is a high amount of, sorry, something fell in my eyes, sorry. When there is a high amount of temperature around 20 to 25%, when, and these environmental conditions trigger phytoplankton bloom. Phytoplankton blooms trigger zooplankton bloom, and this zooplankton bloom and phytoplankton bloom is usually followed by a cholera outbreak. Now this happens especially in the monsoon seasons when the estuary salinity comes at the lower from the other seasons, and a lot of nutrients enter the estuary by agricultural runoff, by rain runoff, and it raises the ambient water temperature of the estuary. So these are the main reasons of a cholera outbreak. And this cholera, there are there are a number of species of cholera who get transmitted by fish, by shellfish, by algae, and by free living zooplankton. So this is the use of case of cholera. Just allow me 1 minute. Sorry. Sorry, something fell in my eyes. Okay, now it's okay. So I'm not going to waste any more time and go to the next case study, which is hepatitis A and E. This hepatitis A and hepatitis C are water-related hepatitis. They are transmitted again by fecal-oral route. And the hepatitis A, this is the distribution of hepatitis A and hepatitis E. And there are every year, there are estimated 20 million hepatitis E infection. And hepatitis E is a more lethal hepatitis, more lethal virus than hepatitis A, and the death is around 40,000. It is a little more now, and the overall approximate death by hepatitis A is around 7,000. So these are the known killers that occurs as waterborne diseases that come to us as waterborne diseases. But there are some hidden monsters of water. We do not talk about them so much. We do not know about them. And interestingly, our water testing regulations, our research regulations are not prepared to tackle them as yet. And there are two main villains of the story. One is microplastic and one is EDCs, or endocrine disrupting chemicals. So these microplastic and endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs, they are actually situated everywhere. And the problem with them that they are not required in a high dose to cause disease. We know there are some theories that say that everything is poisonous, only the dose cause disease. So a huge dose of a good thing is also poisonous. But these things, these microplastics and EDCs, these are the chemicals who we do not need to ingest those or to assimilate those in a high dose to get sick. So they are present in personal care products, pesticide, plastics, drugs, industrial chemicals, everywhere. They come to the water bodies by agriculture, by landfill and waterways. And so EDCs are everywhere. Very low doses can cause harm, as I was telling, and there are potentially delayed effects, and most of these effects are irreversible. And the effects are largely overlooked, as I was talking, because the current regulatory testing strategies lack adequate test methods. We don't know about these monsters, so I have termed them the hidden monsters. So everyone is affected by these EDCs. So there are mammals. These are the research reports. Mammals, polar bears. These things are always bioaccumulated and biomagnified in the food chain. So these EDCs get deposited in fish body, and polar bear consume those fish. It gets biomagnified in polar bears, and this carbs at a great risk of significant PCB, that is polychlorinated biophenol bioaccumulation. So when we are on the one hand, we are experiencing a global warming where the habitat of polar bear is shrinking by every minute, and there are these risks. And there are birds, these EDCs called eggshell thinning, reduced hatching success, declined population, which lead to extinction. And then are amphibia, there are many endocrine problems, limb degeneration, and there is sex reversal. And this sex reversal is also found in fishes also. So whenever there is EDC in water, the sexes of fishes changes. There are either, depending on the chemical, there are feminization or masculinization, there are cortisol inhibition, there are behavioral changes, there are reproductive impairment, and ultimately, at the base of everything, there are DNA damages. So these EDCs are causing many problems, and the famous candidate of EDC is atrazine. This atrazine, many studies have been started with atrazine, and the results are coming day by day. So when we look at microplastic, we know plastic is bad, but the problem with water, our water, and the food that comes from the water is with microplastic. So we throw plastic to the ocean, maybe not directly, but the plastic we use, much of the amount of the plastic goes into the ocean, and then these plastics gets degraded by wave action, by biochemical action, by sun rays. They degraded into microplastic, and these microplastics are colonized by microbes, and they also consumed by planktons, and fishes consume those microplastic, and ultimately we consume those fishes. So the plastic we are generating, the ocean is so benevolent that it is actually returning our plastic to us. So you can see people are talking about a new food chain, that is eat fish plastic. We eat fish. So actually, we are eating plastic. And again, these plastics, like there are many components like bisphenol A. Many works has been done with bisphenol A. So these are again EDCs. So whenever you may get very satisfied that, oh no, I am not eating plastic, maybe I'm eating, but I'm eating at very low amount that will not cause any harm to me. But that very little amount of plastic is having very little amount of bisphenol A, and very little amount of bisphenol A is actually playing with your thyroid hormone, with your steroid hormones, with your estrogen, and they can cause thyroid cancer, testicular cancer, breast cancer, like many things. So very little amount of plastic containing very little amount of EDCs can cause these things to you. So what are these were the problems, these were the dark sides. So what is the bright side of the story? So there is a bright side, and the bright side is wash. And what is wash? Wash is water access, sanitation, and hygiene. So we have to remember wash, water access, sanitation, and hygiene. So what is wash? These are the duties that must be contributed by a state, by the government, and by us, by common people. So waterborne diseases should be tracked in a national basis, not in a local basis. And every waterborne disease and their outbreak should be investigated and monitored to find the causes, because there are many new causes. I was just reading a report a few days back, and it says that today uh, the number of molecules we have in our body, I'm not talking about the amount of molecules. I'm talking about the diversity of molecules. So the number of molecules we have in our body, 40% of those total diversity of molecules within our body has been invented in the last 50 years. So before 50 years, our molecular makeup was different. We are discovering, we are inventing new molecules, we are using those new molecules more and more, and these new molecules are being deposited in our body. So every cause, every source must be investigated, risk factors must be investigated, developed improved laboratory detection and sampling methods. There are new technologies, new laboratories, more state of the art laboratories. They are very important in combating these diseases. And we must develop new ways to inactivate or to remove these pathogens. New prevention ideas must be investigated. Improve public health through communication and education. This is very important. There are many people on the world who are not aware of these facts, who are not aware that which water can cause which type of damage to them. There are many poor people, there are many illiterate people still. So it is our duty to communicate to them, educate them as much as we can. And WASH related guidance and policies must be implemented by every government on the globe. So, what we can do, we can report plastic pollution. There are many pollution control bodies in every part of the country and the world. You may say that, yeah, reporting will do nothing. So, non-reporting will do more nothing, right? So if 100 people report pollution, maybe one out of those 100 reports may get an answer. We have to be hopeful and we have to do our bit. What we can do easily is to cut down on plastic. We all know that we should cut down on plastic. And when possible, whenever possible, where possible, we should clean up plastic pollution. If we clean up plastic pollution on a regular basis, at least once in a year, one day in a year, that will lead to a considerable low amount of plastic and microplastic which goes and deposited in the ocean. So we can actually cut down the amount of plastic what we eat. So we can make our water safe. Everyone knows how to make water safe. There may be boiling, there may be cleaning of water, there may be cleaning of utensils. We can prepare safe foods. This one I do not need to tell you because everyone is now washing their hands. We can keep our toilets clean. We can keep. There are many people who use a shared toilet, community toilets. Those are need to be cleaned most importantly. And this panel is about what we should do in monsoon, because in monsoon, as we could see in our previous slides, that in monsoon, the diarrheal diseases and the cholera, these outbreaks are most. So water stagnation should be avoided. We should clean water, we should drink, wash your hands, pre-cut food, no, a big no, antiseptic use, drinking water boiling, cleaning of utensil, no street food. This is very important. And no, please, no ice cream from street vendors. Those ice in ice cream are commercial ice, and they contain very good amount of pathogens, and those pathogens are preserved actually in those ice creams. So no ice cream, no street food, no pre-cut food. Stored water should be covered, dampness should be avoided, and don't stay wet. These we can do very easily. It will not cost any money. And there are some policy decisions that should be taken by the government, providing education on sanitation, personal hygiene, hand washing, adequate and safe water supply, waste disposal, garbage disposal, especially disposal of human excreta, human feces and animal feces, that should be done very minutely. And quality standards for public water supply should be maintained. Technology development, I was talking about, better laboratory and research, garbage removal, and a very important thing is removal of shallow hand pumps. Shallow hand pumps are source of many waterborne monsters, many heavy metals, many pathogens, etc. So everywhere shallow hand pumps should be removed. What we can do, we can take vaccination. There are many vaccines against like hepatitis A or other diseases. So when we can when we want to visit a country where hepatitis A, when we go to Africa, we have to take hepatitis A vaccination. So recreational water illness, I was talking about, the many people caught these waterborne diseases, and they catch these waterborne diseases for recreation and swimming. So avoid swimming in a water which is murky or which has a foul smell. If you had diarrhea and you have recovered from diarrhea, do not use swimming pool after 7 days after you have recovered from diarrhea. And if you have an open wound on your any surface, on your any body surface, skin surface, you should not go for swimming, you should not go for a dip in any type of water. And if you must, then you should cover up with your wound by a waterproof bandage. And a very important thing, this is in high fashion in today's world, when you get a new tattoo, do not go for swimming in a swimming pool for 7 days after you get a new tattoo. And many waterborne diseases occur when there is people are traveling, when people are camping outside, when people are hiking, when people are mountaineering. So many myths are there for disinfection of water. I'm just talking about two myths: that freezing of water do not disinfect water, and adding alcohol to water also does not disinfect water. It does no good to us. So there is a common villain of this planet now. This is known as climate change. So everything is related, or everything is now being shown in the eye of climate change. We cannot exclude climate change from anything, but we have to remember that climate change is not a very popular and common villain. So everything we should not attribute, oh, this is happening, oh, this is due to climate change, oh, the flowers are not blooming, oh, kash fools is not blooming this year, this must be climate change, oh, there is so little rain, this is climate change. No, everything is not that related to climate change, because there is also a term which is known as climate variability. But climate is changing, the earth is getting warm, and this increased warmth of the earth, this increased warmth of the atmosphere, this increased carbon dioxide saturation in the atmosphere is again aiding in the spread of these waterborne diseases. So the rainfall, I'm talking about global climatic issues. So there are huge rainfall somewhere and there are very little rainfall somewhere. This variation is increasing. If I can show you many graphs and many slides on that, but this variation is increasing, and this variation is actually aiding in the transport of infectious agents. There are flooding. We know the problem of flooding and the concomitant rise in waterborne disease outbreak. Sea level rise again cause flooding. Flooding cause outbreak. Higher temperature, I was just talking about cholera. So when the ocean of the planet, when the estuaries of the planet will be getting warmer more and more, there will be more planktonic bloom, and there will be more cholera outbreak. So higher temperature will increase cholera, and drought will increase waterborne diseases, because water would be more scarce. People will resort to water of any kind, of any origin, and this will impede their hygiene and obviously sanitation. In North America, the most documented waterborne disease outbreaks has occurred after extreme precipitation events. This is a known fact, and 9 million cases of waterborne diseases occur annually in the United States, and foodborne diseases cause 76 million illnesses a year, with 5,000 deaths per year. So these are the facts we know, and there is a new danger which is rising in the horizon. And that danger is known as the superbug. What is a superbug? A superbug is a very catchy name, but it is nothing but an antibiotic resistance bacteria. So, what is antibiotic resistance bacteria? There are many classifications of antibiotic resistance bacteria. I'm not going into them, but antibiotic resistance bacteria, we are very aware of the fact that we many of us say that, oh, penicillin used to work 10 years back. Now penicillin do not work. Now ampicillin do not work. Now tetracycline do not work. So now they do not work. They were used before 10 years before, 20 years before, 50 years before, but now they do not work because the bacteria and fungi, they are growing antibiotic resistance. And these are the numbers. These numbers may not be very alarming to you, that the death are 23,000 as this is the illness, but there is a increase of the number. So by 2050, superbugs could kill 10 million people a year. Am I joking? No, I'm not joking. So how superbugs arise? Superbugs arise for one reason, and for one reason only, due to indiscriminate use of antibiotics. And most of these indiscriminate uses of antibiotics occur in dairy and in animal livestock industry. So whenever animals get sick, the people who are raising that animal for business, they feed them with some antibiotics. And these antibiotics, there are no prescribed dose of this antibiotic. Every farmer, every dairy owner, they are having their own doses of antibiotic. I know this dose works with my cows. I know this dose works with my murgis. So these things happens. And so these antibiotics, either they are, I'm sorry to say, even doctors, they prescribe antibiotic in viral diseases. Yes, I know antibiotics should be prescribed in viral diseases to uh, prevent secondary infection, uh, but antibiotics cannot kill viruses, we know that. So there are indiscriminate use of this antibiotics, so there may be overuse, so the excess antibiotics will come by the route of fecal matter to the environment. And if the antibiotic is low, then there is a saying, if you can't kill me, you will make me more stronger. So if I am your enemy, try to kill me in the fast time. So whenever there is a low dose of antibiotics, the bacteria, they usually grow antibiotic resistance. There are some genetics of them. So these are the known antibiotic resistance bacteria. These are the known superbugs. They're actinobacteria, staphylococcus, Burkholderia, E. coli, tuberculosis, Klebsiella pneumoniae. These are very known superbugs. And this is a very interesting slide. So how antibiotic resistance grows. This is a case study, and this world map is showing an antibiotic resistant pattern, or antibiotic resistant, I should say, genetics or gene, which is known as NDM1. NDM1. ND stands for New Delhi. So it is very relevant to us. So this NDM1 is a New Delhi metallo beta lactamase gene, and this NDM1 gene can be transmitted from one bacteria to another by mode of horizontal transfer. And this NDM1 gene in 2006, this is a 2006 map, you cannot see any NDM1 case all over the world, because NDM1 was identified just after 2006. The first paper was published after 2006. So in the year 2006, the world was clean of NDM1. Let us see what happens in 10 years of time. So in 2015, this is the spread of NDM1. And this NDM1, just like MRSA, which is also a very well-known case of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, these are resistant to all antibiotics that you can buy from a chemist store. So this was 2006, and this is just after 10 years. So superbugs, these antibiotic resistant phenomena, they do not require any passport or visa to travel worldwide. So when I say that in 2050, the estimated human casualty all over the world is 50 million, it may happen. So we have to be very careful. Please do not consume any antibiotic on your own. You can purchase your antibiotic, you can get your antibiotic from any medicine shop and you can consume. Plus, please don't consume it. Please go to a medical practitioner, get a prescription, and then get the antibiotic. And please do not stop any antibiotic before the dose is over. So the doctor has prescribed me 10 antibiotics. We don't like eating medicines. And after eating 2 antibiotic pills, my fever is over. Oh, I don't need to eat those 8. Oh, what a relief. Please don't do it, because you are not killing the total population of the bacteria in your gut, and those who are remaining in your gut will become antibiotic resistant. And please do not throw your excess antibiotic, even the antibiotic that has passed the expiry date, to the garbage. Please don't. They will ultimately lead to antibiotic contamination of ground, of water, of seawater, of river, and ultimately our food. So these are the credits. And this is the end. We have to be very cautious about water use. We have to respect our water. We have to be very careful about water. If not, this will be our future. This photo was taken a few years back. This is a famous photo. This is a well in Gujarat. And all these people, they are dependent on this well, and this well has very little water and very murky water. So this is going to be our future. And what should I say, the second best time of taking care of our water, the second best time of respecting our waters is today. The best time was yesterday. So with this, I should conclude my talk. Thank you.
Thank you, SN, for such a nice talk, and I'm really happy that you touched all the aspects of this water pollution and the water related problems what we are going to face in future. It's really alarming situation in India, and it is told that next world war would be for maybe water.
Yeah.
It is prediction.
Yeah.
So with that, I think you have touched all the aspects, like starting from diarrhea, then hepatitis B, and finally the superbug, which is a very threatened things which can threat the mankind in future. So I have one personal question to you regarding this topic, that what is your opinion about the Gangetic Delta or the Fluvial Delta, what we are residing in West Bengal or in Odisha? So is these areas are more prone to this type of waterborne diseases than the central part of India?
Yes, the Gangetic Delta and the Orishan Delta, they are very geographically prone to waterborne diseases. There are many rivers that are coming to an estuary. There are the Bay of Bengal, and this Bay of Bengal and this estuary area, they are notorious, they are infamous for cholera outbreaks. So particularly the temperature of this West Bengal estuary, the temperature, the water parameters, the water nutrient parameters, they are very helpful for plankton bloom and Vibrio cholerae bloom. And the Vibrio cholerae, uh, unlike other Vibrio species, only Vibrio cholerae can be infected from one human to another. So if I have Vibrio cholerae, I can infect that to other. Vibrio cholerae can come to us by modes of fishes. We eat many fishes. Our favorite Hilsa fish has lots of Vibrio cholerae infection, and that infection is carried from the fish to the ice that is used for fish preservation. And when that ice is used for preserving another fish, that fish also get infected by Vibrio cholerae. So this particular geographic area is very prone. Yes, you are absolutely right. We have to be very careful.
Yes, thank you, Souryadeep, for nice talk. And I personally thank from bottom of my heart that you accepted my invitation and give such a popular talk on this forum. So thank you very much. Now I'll hand over to Priya for taking up the question answer session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Mukherjee, for enlightening us with such an informative talk and this awareness. I would like to express our deep sense of appreciation to you for the excellent coverage on the topic waterborne disease, mitigation, and prevention. We are really thankful and grateful to you that you share your valuable time with us from your busy schedule. Thank you, sir. So
Thank
now,
you.
moving to the Q&A session.
Yes.
There is question from Bhaskar Kormokar. He has asked that what will be the effect if fishes and another aquatic organisms consume these microplastics? What kind of physiological changes can be seen?
Okay, so I'll just extend the question of Bhaskar to a little more. I would say the effect of both microplastic and EDCs, right? So these microplastics and EDCs, they come hand in hand, and these microplastics. So plastic is not an edible thing, right, Bhaskar? So if I give you plastic for lunch and dinner, you will not be very happy with me. So we are not giving the choice to fishes. We are feeding them forcefully plastic, and they feed them as they just look like zooplankton sometimes, like phytoplankton sometimes, and these microplastic, they also get entrapped in the shell and in the gill system of this planktonic fauna. So fishes eat microplastic, and these microplastic can generate bisphenol A. This microplastic can generate other things like PCB, polychlorinated biphenyl, PBB, polybrominated biphenyl. There are DDT, and there are some metals, cadmium, zinc, arsenic, lead, manganese. These all causes endocrine disruption in fishes. So these endocrine disruption in fishes, what they do, they are actually hormonal mimics. So they bind to a natural hormone receptor, and they have both agonistic and antagonistic values, mode of action, agonistic and antagonistic mode of action. So they can either stimulate the receptor, or they can negatively affect the receptor. They can reduce the activity of the receptor. So it would lead to different endocrine disorders in the fishes. And the main problem is, as they are accumulated, a fish eats, say, 1,000, we know from our childhood, a fish eats, say, 1,000 microplastic. A big fish eats 1,000 small fishes, and we in our lifetime has eaten thousands of big fishes. So the microplastic and EDC, this gets bioaccumulated, biomagnified in our body, and as I was saying, it plays with our hormonal system, mainly steroid hormones, and it is causing cancer of thyroid, testicle, and breast. So this was the answer, Bhaskar.
Okay, there is another answer and another question from Subhashish Indro. Um, how can we get rid of microplastics that are already exist in the aquatic environment?
Okay. How can you get rid of microplastic that are already existing in the aquatic environment? So can we, as an individual level, can Shubhashish get rid of the microplastic that is already in the oceanic environment? No, we can't. Yes, we can, but we need those technologies. Those technologies, there are heavy technical efficiencies, heavy technical instrument base for removing those. But what we can do, we can remove the plastic from the environment, right? And if we remove plastic from the environment, we will be actually removing microplastic from our ocean. So as I was saying, that we should, every one of us should at least once in a year go out of our home and remove a few kgs of plastic. So if we know the population of the world, and if every person remove 1 kg of plastic in one day in a 365 day span, the total plastic will be very less. Okay.
I
Okay,
just
sir.
want to add something with SM, that being educated people also sometimes do nuisance. So I have seen many times, even among the students community also, just eat the chocolate and throw the wrapper. So ultimately, it will accumulate in the environment. And what SM was trying to tell from his talk, that this small pile up will become a big issue in future. So that's why we has to be responsible first. And repeatedly, SM was trying to tell that microplastic, how much it is horrible for the environment and aquatic system. So that's why I think every person, every individual should take up this responsibility, that we should throw the things or the plastics in a proper fashion, not just throwing wherever we like. Thank you. I beg your pardon, SM, just
And
interrupting.
just if you allow me for 2 minutes of time, I have some words of
Yeah, sure,
advice
sure.
for everyone. So now biomagnification is a problem. So we can easily avoid this biomagnification. How? Just remind to eat lower on the food chain. If we eat higher on the food chain, we are actually welcoming the biomagnification to occur in our body. Just eat lower on the food chain. There are most of them, we are science people, we are environmentally aware people. So what is eating lower on food chain? I don't need to elaborate. So eat lower on food chain and avoid processed food, avoid packaged food, eat fresh food, cook in your home, eat that. And one thing is, do not give young children soft plastic toys. The soft plastic toys are very harmful. They contain very harmful categories of plastic. They contain many heavy metals. They contain very toxic colors. So don't give children soft plastic toys. Stop using pesticide in your homes. Don't use pesticide. Use neem oil. Use haldi powder. These are always very potent. Use neem. Do not use naphthalene in your almirahs. Use neem leaves. uh, Avoid using, I know many people would be very angry with me, avoid using makeup, avoid using hairspray, avoid using coloring product, hair color, and please avoid using nail polish. These are sources of EDCs. And these makeup, these there are many products like face washes and shampoos and many things that contains beads. Please read before you buy that whether this product is containing beads or not. These beads are actually processed microplastics. These beads are nothing else. So whenever you are buying a face wash or face scrub or something which has beads, you are donating your hard-earned money to add microplastic to the environment. And avoid using plastic containers and bottles. Avoid using, please throw all the plastic containers and bottle. And please, when you are throwing your plastic containers and bottle to the garbage, Right now, please add all your non-stick frying pans to the garbage. These are killers. The coating on the non-stick frying pan, that is known as Teflon, this is a very sneaky tough. There is no regulation of Teflon making. Every Teflon has its own composition. They vary in their composition, and they contain a molecule known as PFOA, which is perfluorooctanoate, which is an EDC and a potent carcinogen. So just use cast iron kadais and cast iron tawas. Please do not use non-stick frying pans. So thank you.
Yes, what SM told, I personally also believe with SM's thought, and as I know, SM also follow these things in his daily life because he is vegetarian, I guess now, and he never use plastic bottles. In his cabin, you can see a glass bottle instead. So myself also use the copper related bottles, water bottles. So what SM suggested, I think everybody should adapt this and please avoid the plastic bottles or the PET bottles. Try to use the glass bottles and the metal bottles for your own health benefits for your future, and you are also serving the environment. Okay, thank you. Next.
So the next question is from Divisha Biswas. Um, the question is volume of water ingested significant in assessing the risk or probability of having waterborne diseases?
Is volume of water ingested significant in? Yeah, I get your point. So Divisha, we are very particular with our food, right? We do not eat stale food. We eat fresh food. We eat this food. We do not eat that food. But if you think closely, you can see that how much food do you eat in a day? You eat 500 600 grams of food, but you drink at least 3 kgs of water every day. So, if the same amount of pollution is the same amount of toxicant is present in your food and water, the toxicant present in your water will be 6 times more magnified effect on you than the toxicant present in the food. So this is also very prominent in case of air, because we consume more air than water also. So airborne pollution are mostly biomagnified, followed by waterborne pollution, and then by foodborne pollution. So I think he was asking for that. I could not get the actual meaning of it. Is volume of water ingested significant in assessing the risk of probability? I think you meant that.
Okay, sir. Um, the next question is from Shantanu Roy. He asks, between the presence of water and its usage, there is another pillar called detection. Except color and odor, how we can assess the quality of water or an water body which is generally used for drinking to ensure it is fit for drinking and pathogen free.
So Shantanu, the detection part cannot be done. Yes, you can do it, but the detection part cannot be done by, say, 99% of the people of our planet or of our country at least, because they do not have that access. I think you have a lab access. I think you know what is microbiology. I think you know some detection techniques, but you are less than 1% of the people of this country. 99% of these people, they do not know the ways of detection. They rely on color, they rely on murkiness and odor. So detection part should be done by the laboratories, detection part should be done by the researchers and by the government, obviously by the government, by the policy, I mean. And normal people, they should purify their water before drinking it. Even a very clear water, a colorless, odorless water may contain a huge number of pathogenic bacteria. So if you boil your water for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, just putting to a boil, and when the boiling is just start, you close the gas, and that will not disinfect the water. So every people in, especially in time of monsoon, we can see, if we look at the outbreak patterns of India, these waterborne diseases outbreak patterns, we would see that all over the world also these outbreaks are related with monsoon. So in monsoon areas, the people who do not have access to filtered water or community filtration systems, they should boil their water. There is no other way.
So the last question is from Oishika Gangopadhyay. What is the right way of disposing the expired antibiotics?
Oishika, if you live in India, there is no right way right now, or any in other developing countries. So you can do your bit, that you can store your used medicines, used antibiotics, the medicine that have crossed the expiry dates, uh, and you can store and store them. They are not very voluminous, so you can store them. And the right way, if you ask me the theory of disposing them, the theory of right way of disposing them is incineration. But if you ask me, sir, in your locality, where is the incinerator? How can I get access to a municipal incinerator? I have no answer. I don't know where is the incinerator near my town or near my place, or in Kolkata, in West Bengal. So hopefully there would be awareness among government, there would be awareness among politicians, policymakers, and there would be incinerators, and we know in future that where our incinerators be. Until then, please store your used antibiotics and used medicine in a hard box.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, is there anyone have any questions? What already Priya told. Apart from this, any question or any comment you want to give, you can give.
If I can just add regarding antibiotic disposal, so far whatever SM has said, I agree with him completely. If storing antibiotics is not an option, there is another thing, that never ever throw your antibiotics down the drain, because they'll end up in the groundwater right away. The other thing is that it can be disposed through solid waste, because that will take a little more time for the antibiotics to land up in the groundwater, and hopefully most of it would degrade by the time it actually gets there.
Thank you, Apurna, for your input. Uh, Another question popped up by Sarbori Sarkar. Do not buy excess antibiotics, just buy the prescribed one. Yeah, that is the only solution. So we have to minimize the use. So I think we finished all our question and answer session, and now I will hand over to Priya.
Okay, sir.
So I think today's session was nice, and actively many questions have been popped up, and it is really nice to see that young generations are um, participating and taking active role in asking questions and in discussion. So again, thank you to SM from Marine Ecology Laboratory as well as Aquafilin for sharing his thoughts, and I guess it was very nice talk, and students will get stimulated and enlightened and excited in future, and be cautious about using the plastics and antibiotics, and judiciously use this for your betterment as well as for the environment. So thank you everyone for participating in this colloquium lecture series, and stay tuned for our future lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Shumit. Thank you.